And it's time to look at what's in the weekly magazines with our press reviewer, Florence Villemineux. First up, Flo, Courrier International, which continues to focus, of course, on the ongoing crisis in Ukraine.
That's right. According to Courrier International, Vladimir Putin is playing with fire, and you can see this little drawing here of him depicted as a vulture. Now, Courrier International points out that there's a huge disparity in the versions of the events that are being put forward, on the one hand by the Ukrainian media, and then on the other hand by the Russian media, and they have extracts from articles from various papers from Ukraine and from Russia. Now, this is due to starkly different conceptions and assumptions about just what's happening on the ground. The one thing that everyone can agree on, though, is there's a feeling of déjà vu. All this really feels like a step back into the Cold War. Now, also on the front page of Courrier International this week is the issue of abortion and how there is a return of the conservatives, according to Courrier International. Just 40 years after most Western countries recognize the rights for women to have abortions, well, according to Courrier International, that right is under attack in many parts of the world, such as Spain, the UK, and especially in the US, where anti-abortion lobbyists are trying to make it harder for women to have an abortion. And so Courrier International points out that when it comes to women's rights, nothing is written in stone. And of course, this comes as we celebrate International Women's Day, this month.
Absolutely. Well, meanwhile, Nouvel Observateur focuses on women, but also on men.
That's right, and brings up this age-old debate. What are the real differences between men and women? Now, I'm not sure there'll be an answer in Nouvel Obs this week, but it wonders how much of this is due to nature, how much of this is due to nurture. Are we born men and women? Do we become men and women because of social constructs, which is known as gender theory? Now, Nouvel Obs takes a look at the latest scientific discoveries and kind of does an inventory of all the latest conventional wisdom as well.
Oh, what a fascinating topic. It actually is quite topical here in France, Flo.
That's right. Gender theory is a debate that's caused quite a ruckus here in France. And in fact, a lot of people in France don't believe in gender theory. They think it's a bad word, and there's been outrage over a new school program that many people, especially Muslim and Catholic organizations, claimed actually teaches gender theory to little kids. Now, teachers say this is not gender theory. What it's doing is trying to do away with stereotypes. But as you can see here, the school system in general is in Le Point's crosshairs this week. And it's not all to do with gender theory. It's just because things are bad, according to Le Point. For instance, it pulls out some statistics. 19% of young people are illiterate here in France, and 40% of young people without diplomas are unemployed. So according to Le Point, all this is bad despite the huge budget that the state has put forward for schools, which is 65 billion euros. So it asks this question: can we actually entrust our children in the public school system?
Let's move on to the feminist magazine Cosette, because it's investigating sexual violence in the army.
That's right. Cosette actually publishes extracts from a book called The Invisible War. Now, this was a book that was written by two journalists, Leila Minano and Julia Pasquale, after a 2-year investigation. Now, the French army often brags about being the most feminist army in the world because 15% of recruits are women. But Cosette points out there's a big silence on the question of sexual violence. Only 39 cases have been officially recognized, but there are some 196,000 troops. Now, according to Cosette, this investigation is actually bearing some fruit because the Ministry of Defense has decided to also launch an official investigation into violence against women. Now, Jeune Afrique is also pointing the finger at the French army, but this time for its military operations in Africa. From Mali to the Central African Republic, never before has the army weighed in so much on France's African policy. It actually talks about a silent coup d'etat, how the army took over power. That's on the front page you just saw there, with this illustration of the president, François Hollande.
Striking picture there.
As a soldier, that's right.
All right, let's move on to a bit of glitz and glamour in Hollywood now, Flo. The New Yorker has a profile of a 28-year-old Somali-American star of Captain Phillips, who nearly won a prize, but he didn't.
That's right. It's named Barkhad Abdi. Now, he was a limousine driver in Minnesota when he was cast for the role in 2011. So he won a BAFTA. He was nominated for the Oscar. But the New Yorker says, unfortunately, it's not really a Hollywood ending for him. It's more like hardship in Hollywood. He says he's having a real hard time making ends meet, and he says that he's moved to Hollywood to try and get more jobs, but he's having a hard time finding work. Now, one actress who's probably not having a hard time finding work is the French actress Julie Gaillet. She's on the front page of Paris Match this week. Now, she's gotten a lot of attention because she allegedly had an affair with the president, François Hollande. Now, she was nominated for a César, which is kind of the French equivalent of the Oscar, for a second role. She didn't win that award, but she was the star of the ceremony, according to Paris Match. And as you can see here on the front page, she says that she's assuming her new destiny. So good for her.
So we'll find out more from her, I guess. All right, thank you very much, Flo. That was Florence Vilminot with all of the week's weeklies.